The New South Wales Government COVID-19 support packages demystified.
Welcome to Fareed from ATP Accounting. Welcome again, round two.
Thank you for having me.
Absolutely.
No problem.
So this week it has all been about in the news and the media about the government providing support for households, businesses, tenants and landlords for those that are affected by COVID-19. And that's what today is all about. I'm sure we'll have a lot of questions as well. But to start off with, just give me a bit of an overview of what you've discovered, what you've seen when you've read through this, the support packages.
So probably, basically, the best thing to start it up or break it up into different sections. So the first section, I will start to talk about the business assistance that the government is giving to business owners. And then we can go into landlords, both commercial and residential. And then we can go into household, and happy to take any questions. So let's start with the business grants. So with the business grants, it's basically made up of three different grants. The first lot of grants covers the first 3 weeks of the pandemic. With that, it's available for businesses with turnover from $75,000 up to $10 million. You do a comparison from the 26th of June to the 17th of July in your turnover of 2021 and compare the same period in 2019. The reason they picked 2019, it was before COVID. So they want to compare COVID's figure now compared to what it was prior to COVID. And if the business had a drop between 30% and 49%, they will get $7,500. If they had a drop between 50,000 and 69%, they will get $10,500. And if they had a drop of more than 70% in their turnover, they will get $15,000. The most important thing is that the business need to have incurred costs equivalent to that amount to be able to access that. So these funds are meant, the government is giving it to the businesses to help them pay their rent, pay their wages, pay their expenses, things that they would not be able to cover from anywhere else. So this covers the first 3 weeks of the lockdown. If the business did drop and their turnover is between 75 to 10 mil, they can apply to get that lump sum payment. From week 4 onwards, there is another grant that is called the Job Saver. And the way that that works is basically if you had a business that had a drop in turnover 30% or more, they will have 40% of their wages rebated onto that business. But the only condition, or one of the conditions, is that they need to maintain the number of employees they had as on the 13th of July. So the 13th of July was the announcement that the government has made. So as long as the person maintains the number of employees after the 13th of July. So basically the reason why the government gave that is to encourage employers to hold on to employees. Now, the third type of grant is meant for what we call micro businesses. So these are businesses that had a turnover between 30,000 to 75,000. Those businesses are not eligible for the first 2 grants that we spoke to, but they are eligible for the micro business grant. And that is basically made of $1,500 that they will receive per fortnight. As long as they had, again, a 30% drop in turnover in the comparison period between the 16th of June from the 26th of June to the 17th of July. Now, notice that the 26th of June to the 17th of July is actually a period of 3 weeks. You're allowed to pick any 14 consecutive days and do a comparison with 2019. If there is a reason why you're not using 2019 because the person was starting a new business, for example, or there is a reason why they cannot use 2019, so maybe it was not reflecting their business, they can go to what we call the alternative method or approach Service New South Wales. So to apply for these grants, it needs to be applied through Service New South Wales. You basically create a profile based on your business. So if your business is a sole trader, you apply as a sole trader with the ABN of the business. If your business is a company, you apply under a company. And you basically have to upload a tax return, a copy of your tax return, to prove that your income is 75,000 or more for the first 2 grants, or if your income is, your turnover is between 30 to 75. Now, remember, turnover means income before expenses.
Yeah.
Sorry, just too much information, but I'm trying to.
It's, yeah, absolutely.
And that cash flow boost, that's a one-off payment I take, right?
Yes. Yeah. So the first grant, it's actually a one-off payment to cover the first 3 weeks of lockdown. Yes.
Right. And applications are open now as we speak, I take, and they've got a couple of weeks to apply.
So that started on Monday, and it will be available for people to claim up to the 30th of September. So we have plenty of time. The website has been a little bit down on Monday and Tuesday, Service New South, naturally, because there's so much demand. I guess just be a bit patient. If you can't get through, you will be able to. Worst case scenario, if you can't get through to the website to register, what you can do is jump into Service New South Wales, give them your name, your business name, and your ABN, and tell them which grants you want to apply for. And it's like an expression of interest. You register your interest, and then they will email you with a button that you can basically then apply through that process. Remember, you need to have your tax return. If you had a drop in turnover, they might ask you to provide an accountant's letter to provide or proof that you had a drop in turnover. And you need to make sure that you have the expenses, a record of those expenses, to be able to substantiate claiming those. Right. So that's the first lot. The second lot is basically the money that is available for landlords. Now, the way the landlord payments work, it's actually broken up into 2 different components. So for landlords that have commercial properties, if they reduce the rent to their tenants, because their tenants either are receiving the micro business grant or receiving the business grants that we spoke about, or they are receiving the job saver scheme. If the landlord decides to drop the rent, they can go and get that rent that they reduce from their tenant rebated against their land tax. So as long as they are paying land tax, the commercial landlord, and they have the rent rebated, because their tenant is receiving those grants, they can have that rent reduction reduced against their land tax.
Okay.
That's for commercial property. For residential property, it's broken up into 2 different components. For residential, if the landlord pays land tax, then also if they reduce the rent, with residential, the percentage is actually 25%. If the tenant of the residential property loses 25% of or more of their income, and it is basically the landlord pays land tax and they reduce the rent, they can then go and have a rebate against their land tax. If the landlord does not pay land tax, and this is a little bit confusing, if they don't pay land tax and their tenants suffered income loss of 25% or more, and they reduce the rent, they have up to $1,500 that they can reduce their rent by and claim that back. Now, in this scenario, because they're not registered for land tax, they will claim that $1,500 from New South Wales Fair Trading.
Right. Okay. So is this all done through Service New South Wales, even these grants as well?
All of those are through Service New South Wales, except the last one, which is a landlord that doesn't pay land tax, and they rebate a residential tenant. They are allowed to reduce their rent by up to $1,500. To claim onto that $1,500, they have to go through Service New South Wales fair trade.
Okay. So what sort of documentation? So I guess it's just a confirmation from the agent, if it's managed by the agent, that yes, we reduce the amount by this much. And that's
before that, you actually need to start with the tenant. The tenant needs to provide proof that their income has actually dropped by 25%. Because if the income of the tenant did not change, the landlord cannot get these rebates. So it starts with the tenant. If the tenant has lost their income, if it's residential, they've lost 25% or more of their income, they are allowed to start the process. If it is commercial, their turnover had to have dropped, but they also need to have been receiving one of the grants. So I guess a confirmation that they're receiving the grants if it's a commercial property, and then you can then start the process. Then the landlord can then rebate the rent or reduce the rent, and then go and ask for it from the land tax on a commercial basis.
Right.
Sorry, it's a bit confusing. There's so much information, but
if anyone has questions, let us know.
Yeah, exactly. Happy to answer any questions while we are live. So in terms of the land tax, so how does exactly, so that would be on that financial year when you do that tax return.
So land tax, remember, land tax is charged as of the 31st of December.
Okay.
Whatever land that you had, you basically pay for that year. So at the moment, people would have, as of basically December 2020, they would have started paying the land tax for the 21. So what the government is offering, if they are eligible and they did reduce the rent, they will go to the land tax and have that rebated against the land tax that they have already paid. They would have already paid majority of the land tax by now, because most of the land tax is charged in January, February, March.
Unless you need to pay quarterly.
But even though, because we are still in July, there's more likely that a person would have paid most of the land by now. So they are allowed to go back and rebate it. I guess the only tricky part is for the landlords as such. The incentive is that they will just help their tenant, but there isn't any money incentive as such, because they're going to reduce the rent, and on the other hand, they're going to get their land tax reduced. So there isn't any benefit. So the landlord really needs to go out of their way to do this. But there is no benefit really for the landlord in this case. But of course, they are helping their tenant staying off contact.
Yeah, but the tenant has to, at the end of the day, justify it that they've had a reduction in income.
Yeah, so there's got to be proof of 25% of reduction in income. That's
only residential. That's residential. 25% is residential. Okay. Commercial, it has to be 30% or above.
Okay. So 25%. Okay. So as long as you've got those proofs, that's what's being attached to get these rebates eventually.
Correct.
There you go. So, look, at least it's something. $1,500 for a landlord that is reducing their rent. That's a couple of weeks worth of, like, even if some tenant's paying half the rent on a $500 per week rent, that's that's good.
Help, yes. And on an individual basis, so basically, if you are an employee and you have lost your work or your hours have been reduced, you can apply to what we call the disaster payments, which is administered by Centrelink, and you apply to that using MyGov, and basically get payments depending on the weeks that you actually had drop in income. That payment is meant for employees that, of course, they've been stood down and they don't have any holidays or any entitlements that they can claim. So that's an assistance for employees as such. If they lose their hours or they lose either some or all of their hours, they can make a claim to Centrelink using MyGov for the disaster payment.
I think these grants could be probably changing as well if the lockdown keeps continuing as well. So it's a bit of a changing.
But this is
this is what it is at the moment.
So how quickly, from what you might have heard, how quickly are they being paid? So the initial support packages. So for example,
according to the government announcement, some of the disaster payments have already been paid out to individuals. The ones for the businesses, because it only started on Monday.
Yeah.
I don't know what the statistics are, but I think a lot of people haven't even applied everything. And if they have applied, they might have forgotten to send in this document or that document. So I think it's just going to start, the money's just going to start rolling up now. But because it only opened up on Monday. But with the disaster payment, that has actually started a while back. So a lot of those payments, according to the government, has already been paid to individuals.
Wow.
Well, that's good. Like at least you got some sort of a surety from an income point of view for those that have lost it. So I guess to sum it up, MyGov is only for individuals that have been stood down, don't have any leave. Yep. Everything else is service.
Correct. That's correct.
Except for the landlords. Residential landlords claiming that up to $1,500 or less, depending on if they've given less as a reduction in rent, they can only claim that. And that's through New South Wales fair trading. Fair trading, correct. These are for landlords that are renting residential that are not paying land tax. Yeah, for not paying land tax. Yeah. Yeah. The ones that are paying land tax, they will get their land tax rebated through land tax. So they have to claim those rebates with the land tax. Yeah.
Yeah, a lot of information. I think everyone should, contact their own accountants if they
get in
trouble with the numbers. So.
And also jump onto Service New South Wales. There's a lot of information in there. And like I said to you, if you do have a business, it's worthwhile to, put your name, put your email address, contact Service New South Wales, and see what grants are available. But yeah, definitely reach out to your accountants. But just remember, accountants, we are all under the pump at the moment. Be a little bit patient. If your accountant doesn't reply to your messages or your emails or your calls, just give them a couple of days. I'm quite sure they'll get in touch with you. They've been under the pump a lot at the moment.
If you have business, I think you should definitely have a look out, because you might be eligible for a grant, and you don't want to miss out as well. So
That's right. If it's helping your business staying afloat, especially if you're supporting staff ongoing and there is no money coming through the door, it definitely helps a lot. So it's really great. And of course, if they have any questions, we're happy to help them along.
Absolutely. Yeah. So any questions during or after the this event as well, happy to respond individually and help you guys. Perfect. Any final words before we wrap up?
I remember, did you say that you had any questions before somebody sent?
The main one was that I had was just about how do you actually go about applying, which is through, as you said, through New South Wales fair trading for those that are not entitled to getting land tax or not paying land tax. So I think that's the main question that I had. Otherwise, I'm sure once we have this circulating through to a couple of thousand people, there will be some other questions coming up. So happy to answer afterwards as well.
Look, my piece of advice to any business owner is that we will get through this. Have a positive mindset, because guess what? We've been through bad things. We've been through good things. Things will come back. Have a positive mindset. Think, what is it that I can do in my business differently? I always talk about pivoting in your business. Think differently of how you can do your business. And I mean, all credit to you guys. For example, if I use you as an example, you're awesome. I mean, look at what you are doing. You are thinking outside the usual thinking of, what a real estate will do or what a finance person will do. And you are giving value to people. You're pivoting your business. You are using and helping other people and using benefits that are basically passing on advice to other people. So whatever business a person has, they need to just think, what can I do differently now? And especially now, a lot of people might actually have time in their hands. Sure. Because technically, as business owners, a lot of times we just don't have time. But if you're locked down and you do have time and you can't do anything, maybe just assess your business. Say, what can I do with my business a little bit different? Think outside the square, pivot your business. Definitely have a very positive mindset, because positive mindset and mental health is very important. If you're feeling down and you're feeling bad, please speak to someone, because I guess as a result of lockdown, you know, having, you know, depression, having, you know, anxiety, having all of these things, it's not good. So speak to someone, reach out, and, you know, get support and get help and assistance, but mostly have a positive mindset, because we will come out of that. Think what you can do differently and reach out to professionals. I think a word of advice that I do give: don't hear what your friends are telling you. Ask professionals. You know, if you want to buy property, go and speak to property professionals like you guys. If you are looking at finance, so finance is another area where I would recommend people to look into, you know, with you guys as well. So if there is any benefits where the banks are giving maybe a little bit of relief, maybe a rent reduction, maybe think about refinancing your home if you can get a good rate somewhere else. So every dollar counts. A lot of times people say, oh, it's only going to save me this, or it's going to only save me that, but it all adds up. So work on that and have that positive mindset, and the business will come back better. Just need to think, what can I do when I do come back, and use that downtime to build your business, catch up on the things. Maybe your marketing, maybe your website needs a bit of refresh, maybe your social media needs a little bit of refresh. I guess now that you have time, why don't you do business?
Work on the business, not in the business. COVID clarity. So 100%.
Talking about mortgages, you brought a good point. Is there any relief from
the
repayments?
The banks haven't announced it yet, but yes, there is available. So if you're in hardship, there is a special number you can call depending on which bank you're with. So there is definitely support available out there.
Yeah,
100%.
Because I'm thinking about.
But we're doing a lot of refinancing at the moment. So if you've got a current interest rate you're paying, there's a lot of cashbacks available out there as well. So definitely every dollar does count, and sometimes depending on the mortgage size, you could be saving a lot of money, and it all adds up. So over a 30-year period normally, the loan term. So that's another area you can look into.
Absolutely.
That's right. Yeah, and it's really good, because you can actually do one thing at a time. And in the past, you might not have had a chance
at the time,
to look into things. Well, now you do, so you might as well get it happening. And when you're back into business, you're going to be busy again, so might as well get those to-do lists.
Especially with finance, there's a lot of paperwork involved, so I think now's the time
to compile it.
We're getting smashed at the moment, so I think people have more time on their hands to get the paperwork ready and everything. So I think have a look at your finances.
That's right. And from the other hand as well, keep your eyes open on opportunities. You know, because there are plenty of opportunities there. There's actually opportunities for getting employees as well. I mean, some people are losing their jobs. If you are after a specific type of employees, be on the lookout, because guess what? If you hire them now while they've lost their job, but they have the ability, they have the expertise, maybe it's perfect time to snatch those quality employees. So always look at opportunities amongst you know, the challenges that we are in now, and think outside the square. What can I do to pivot my business and make my business grow to the next level?
Come out stronger. That's it. We've done it once. And I was just thinking, if you like, when we weren't in lockdown, it felt everything was just so normal, and now we're dreading to that normality. I'm sure we're going to forget this when we are back to normal. It's like, because
fingers crossed will come out bigger and better. I think like last time.
That's good.
I think all the business will be hopefully pumping that to stay afloat.
Definitely.
Rosemary says, good point for it. There we go.
Thank you, Rosemary. Rosemary is an awesome solicitor. So if you need any solicitor help, please reach out to Rosemary.
There you go. Perfect. Well, thank you so much for joining us once again.
Thank you for having me.
A wealth of knowledge. We're always counting on you for all these, any accounting help. You're the man to go to. In the building as well. That's the best thing. In the same building, yet we can't be in the same room. So joys of lockdown.
We will do once we are back.
Once we're back, we'll do another one. Perfect. Well, thank you so much for your time.
Thank you.
See you guys next time.
See ya.
Thank
you. All right. Bye.